Welcome to our webinar brought to you by Eide Bailey and Western Governors University. My name is John Harden. I'm a Strategic Partnerships Manager for WGU. Today, we're going to be discussing making a pivot, the many questions and opportunities that surround moving into a career in IT. And really, the overarching message is really what involves making a pivot. Have you ever thought about making a pivot? Are you concerned that you might not have the skills or believe you don't have the time to earn the credentials you need? What credentials do you need, and what opportunities are out there, and how do I find them? We're going to answer those questions and more today. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kick it off with Eide Bailey, and I'm going to introduce Bobby Cox. Bobby Cox is a technology consulting recruiter, and he's going to provide a quick overview of who Eide Bailey is. Bobby?
Thanks, John, and thanks to you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here today and just kind of have a conversation on this topic of pivoting your career. As John mentioned, I am a technology consulting recruiter. Here at Eide Bailey, I support our growing technology consulting practice with their staffing needs. And to talk to you a little bit more about Eide Bailey, we are a top 25 business advisory firm, founded in 1917 and headquartered in Fargo, North Dakota. We now have over 40 offices across 15 states, and we offer a variety of tax, audit, and consulting services. To talk about those service offerings, we focus on three key business elements: digital transformation, optimization, and future readiness. So when I mentioned digital transformation, those services include data analytics, technology consulting, implementation and integration, cybersecurity, and others. Optimization, by that I mean we provide services around operational reviews, bookkeeping, tax planning, audit, human resources consulting, as well as other services. And then future readiness, those services includes risk advisory, wealth planning, fraud and forensic advisory, ownership transition, R&D, and again, other services. So I mentioned again that I support the technology consulting practice with their needs. Our consultants in this practice just aren't in the business of knowing the software, but they're in the business of helping our clients grow their business, remain competitive, and to operate efficiently and effectively. Our teams, they understand how to leverage today's technology solutions to drive results. And some of those solutions include ERP implementation, CRM implementation and consulting, data analytics and business intelligence solutions, as well as cloud platform solutions. Great things, I believe, happen when people collaborate on a common vision, and that brings me to our culture piece. Our culture is the foundation of who we are, and we encourage our team members to grow not only professionally in the office, but also personally, even at home. Our interns, they get quality training, on the job training, hands-on experience. They get access to our senior staff, access to our clients, our full-time staff. They have access to mentoring, our career advisory program, and an exchange program that allows them to rotate through different departments and specialties. And recently, the firm has created an inclusion and diversity committee to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within the firm for all minority groups. And I think that's something that we are all very excited about going in this direction. So our firm really has, where it's a large firm, we really have a family feel, and we are passionate about our clients. We're passionate about the work that we do, but we're also passionate about each other and helping each other grow and growing our teams and having fun while doing it. So that's a little bit about us at Eide Bailey.
Thanks, Bobby. That was awesome. I'm going to pass it over to Catherine March. Catherine, can you introduce yourself, please, and let us know what you do?
So I'm, as you said, Catherine March. I'm with the technology consulting group at Eide Bailey. So I'm a NetSuite ERP implementation and optimization consultant. NetSuite's just a cloud-based ERP software that we are a solution provider for. So I started an audit with Eide Bailey 6 years ago. 6 years ago, and then pivoted into technology consulting 2 years ago with Eide Bailey's internal internship, which is called an exchange program.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. And Nathan Mcmurtry, can you introduce yourself and let us know what you do?
Hello, everybody. I'm Nathan Mcmurtry. I run the analytics practice at Eide Bailey. So we provide analytics services to the 90,000 plus clients that Eide Bailey has. And it's awesome to be here with you.
Thank you. Nick Mortensen.
Yeah, great to meet you all. So name's Nick Mortensen. I run the business process automations group. And so that includes a few things: Salesforce development, traditional full stack web development. And we do some integrations work and some robotic process automation. So, you can basically think about anything that automates business process, which is why we've been named such. So great to meet you all.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for joining us. So if anybody has any questions, please post them to the chat and we'll do a Q&A at the end of the program. So let's jump in and talk about what it takes to make a pivot in your career. So the first question, and again, these questions are posed to anybody on the panel, anybody that wants to jump in and answer. We'd love to hear from as many of you as you want to comment. But tell me more about the typical day in the life of a technology consultant or any role that you're seeking to fill.
So I'll shoot first here, guys. The analytics department is all about problem solving for businesses with data problems. And the typical day in the life of our people, you kind of divide analytics up into preparing data, meaning pulling it from systems, modeling it, and making it accurate. And then we have the second part of data, which is the visualization. So building reports, really providing visibility into the operations of an organization, identifying key performance indicators, that kind of thing. And then the last group is all about analyzing data and helping a business understand its business better through its data. And so, our consultants, they can't get enough of this stuff. It's awesome that they get to go in. It's really like a doctor-patient relationship with our clients where they have pain, and our consultants go in and figure out how to build solutions to solve that pain.
And I would argue that a lot of what my group does is the other side to Nathan's coin, right? So the lines between our two groups are pretty blurred. There's a lot of stuff that Nathan's group does that is very closely tied with what we do, and vice versa, right? And so day in and day out, we're meeting with clients. We're trying to understand the business problems that they're trying to solve. A lot of what we're doing is in preparation for what Nathan's team is doing, right? So people want better visibility and insight into what's going on with their business. And so they put certain processes in place and certain systems in place to capture and record data appropriately, so that I can either have an approval process or add visibility into what's going on in whatever that business process is. And so in order to do that well, you really got to understand what's the core problem that you're trying to solve, so that we can put the right solution in place. And it's, working with managers, boots on the ground executives to understand, holistically the business and the problem that you're trying to solve, so that you can turn around and build a technical solution.
Excellent.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please comment.
So an ERP system, I kind of come in before maybe clients even know what they need from Nick and Nate's groups. Clients that I'm working with have a lot of manual processes. Maybe they have one employee whose entire job is doing bank recs, or they're coming off of QuickBooks and have never had an entire ERP system. So my job is a lot of on the phone with clients and kind of digging into what do you really need and what's missing. So again, just like Nate said, what are the pain points and how do we relieve that pain? But they don't even necessarily know what data is important to them just yet. And how are we going to get that data into into a computer, into a cloud-based system, and not just on a piece of paper on an Excel sheet that's hovering on somebody's desktop. So I help people kind of come into the 21st century a little bit more and learn how to operate and scale and really grow to a degree that they can't on their current accounting platform.
That's great. Thanks, Catherine. Would anybody else like to comment? Okay, jump into the next question. What are the core activities or outcomes successful professionals in these roles achieve? What are they doing day to day?
Yeah, I'll keep the flow here going, and you know, the real thing, especially with Eide Bailly, is we're customer facing. You've heard all of us talk about our customers' problems, and that's really the main outcome that all of us have in common is we kind of fall in love with solving our customers' problems. And so in the world of technology, there's some people who they love the technology they're using, but they don't necessarily want to deal with people or any kind of business problem outside of what the thing that's immediately in front of them. That's not Eide Bailly or even a consulting role. Consultants love to deal with the people, the energy of businesses. They love to see change happening and really be the catalyst of that change. And so that's really what drives our people.
Yeah. You know, if with my particular group, you're talking about the core outcomes of people that are successful in their jobs. The outcomes of what they're doing day in and day out. With my group, it's an automated process, right? Something that was manual or cumbersome or complicated, overly convoluted, is made more simple, is made more streamlined, more efficient, faster, completely automated, where it's totally hands off. That's kind of the goal of my group. How do we incrementally make it easier to do your job so that you're spending less time on the mundane and the repetitive, the boring, and you're spending more time on the kind of the true human value add stuff, which is more complex, more nuanced, and more frankly fulfilling.
I'll leave that on Nick. He covered it. That was perfect.
Next one's for you, Catherine.
All right, we'll jump into the next question then. So as a hiring manager, what are you looking for from a candidate when you go into an interview? In other words, what would sway you to do the interview if someone hadn't had direct relevant experience in the same career field?
That's a good question.
I'll
Sorry,
go ahead.
Bobby, you go ahead.
Yeah.
That's your space, man. This is you.
I'll let you tag team after, but I think the knowledge and the ability to handle some aspects of the role are definitely important. Whether you're talking to a recruiter or a hiring manager in an interview, but so I mean, I would say always prepare to show how your past experiences have helped you prepare for the position that you're coming into when you're pivoting a career. I mean, a lot of times I meet with candidates who don't come in prepared, don't have a lot of questions, really unsure about the position or about who we are and what exactly we're doing. And a lot of times, in any case, whether you're pivoting or you're coming into a position that you're used to, it looks like you're just kind of looking. It looks like you're just kind of looking for a job, and we want people that are doing more than just looking for a job. We want people that are looking for a career and a career with us. And so I think coming in and being able to illustrate, doing the research, looking at the job description, really finding out picking out certain aspects or certain points from the job description that really translate from what you've done to what you could be doing with us, I think is important, and it will help you, make that and take that next step in terms of folding into this position or as your transitioning career.
Yeah. So the not the most recent hire, but the hire before on my team, I hired a woman to come in and be an RPA developer, and she was her current job at the time, she was selling forklifts. Complete and total pivot and change in her career. And I can tell you with her specifically, what was impressive were a few things, right? So first and foremost, she had a legitimate, like, you could just feel her desire to learn. And I would say that natural curiosity and that desire to learn and really just like dig in and figure out what's going on, why is it, why are things behaving this way? I would say that's one of the most valuable traits that you can have in your career. It's just a genuine, like, learning. You need to have a passion around learning. The career, the IT field, anything in technology, the landscape is shifting constantly. I started as a Salesforce developer, then I moved into consulting, and then I moved into integrations work, and now I'm doing robotic process automation. And like, even though I've stayed in kind of like the same lane for the duration of my career, I'm like on my fourth or fifth iteration from like a technology perspective, right? And that you can't not continue to learn if you want to stay relevant in this field. So that drive, that desire, that true curiosity, and about what makes the world and technology tick, that's going to be huge. And then communication, right? She had really good communication skills, and at least in our industry, communication is massive. So there's a real firsthand experience of somebody who made a very large pivot. It doesn't get a whole lot different than forklift sales into technical RPA developer type role, but she's doing great. She's doing really,
Yeah,
really well.
Nick, I'd love to jump off on what you're saying because I think it's not always apparent when you're in the interview what a hiring manager is looking for, and especially in technical roles. Usually when I'm interviewing, there's table stakes of you need to know certain things for analytics, but it's not a huge wall to jump over. The huge wall to jump over for us are all of the behaviors that we're looking for. Is it someone who's consultative? Is it someone who shows a lot of ownership in their previous work? Is it someone who works really well with teams and is a great communicator? What Nick said about learning agility is a huge thing because the technology changes for us so fast. We say the half-life is about 9 months. And so looking for all of these skills, these soft skills, is what we're actually looking for in the interview, because we feel like if they have these really strong behaviors, we can train the skills. And once you find the right people and they've got that learning agility, you just realize that that's what works out. The mistakes we make, and you learn them really fast, is when you hire people who are really good at the tools and really good at the hard skills, but they're missing really important parts of those soft skills that make great consultants. And so we don't make those mistakes very often anymore. And so, the interview process, there's some technical questions and such, but what you're really asking, even when you're asking these technical questions, is, can you explain to me something that's technical in a way that a client could understand it? You're not necessarily asking, does somebody understand the technical parts of coding and such?
I have 2 interviews usually. The entire first interview is behavioral. I won't even ask you a single technical question. It's all about the soft skills and the business competency, that kind of stuff.
That's super insightful. I mean, and that kind of moves into the next question. From your perspective, what might be the biggest challenge that people face when changing careers, especially going into IT? I mean, Nick gave a great example of somebody selling forklifts. Now they're in IT, and I think for a lot of the people that are going to either be in this webinar or they're going to see it after we record it, people have fear about getting into IT, and it's like, I've always wanted to do it, but for a forklift salesperson, what was her mindset? How did she get into it? So what's the biggest challenge?
I think Sorry, on our panel, Kat is uniquely. Take some time to tell your story, Kat, because I think there's a lot of people probably listening that could follow a very similar path.
Yeah, so not quite to the degree of Nick's example, but I didn't know what ERP stood for when I joined to become an ERP consultant. I didn't know what SQL stood for. I had never in my life even seen a string of HTML code. I honestly was starting from really nothing, but I told the folks that were mentoring me and bringing me on that, you know, I have a lot of confidence I can figure this stuff out. And I think that's a really key skill to bring to the table is just, I think Nick touched on it earlier, is the skill to just figure things out, because there's not a set formula for any of our clients in any industry. What works for one is not going to work for the next. So even if you have all the technical skills in the world, the contextual ability to see and listen and hear nuance at a client, and the confidence in yourself that it might take some long nights and it might take some banging your head against a wall, but confidence that you're going to figure these things out is a huge skill to bring. And I would think that hiring managers will hear that and see that. And if you can follow up on that and put in the work and the time, then you're going to be successful, because wherever you're coming from, whatever direction you're coming from, you have a context that other folks don't have. And maybe you provide a different perspective to an industry that they've never heard before because you come from a different industry. And that can be really, really valuable and be, honestly, some clients' favorite part about you. I guess that's my spiel on figuring things out.
It's great. Kat and I are kind of cut from the same cloth in this way. We both started in accounting and made a pivot. I made a pivot to analytics, and she made a pivot to ERP. But it's really insightful that you can feel like you don't throw away the previous thing that you had. And it's not. We mentioned the soft skills; those are very, very important to transferring. But in both of our careers right now, that foundation of bolts of a business that you get with accounting sets us apart from people who follow other paths into these ways. And so you really, as you start to connect the dots, looking back on your career, the different things you're picking up are just additive. And that's why, you know, the kind of the mission of WGU and pivoting careers. I mean, it's a very awesome thing to just see your career as stacking. You know, for me, I went from accounting to data analytics to starting my own company, and then being acquired by an accounting firm, and then find myself back in accounting. And so sometimes it goes for full circle.
That's awesome. And that kind of leads into the next question, which, and Catherine, she kind of touched on this, but it's about a mindset. It's her mindset was, I can figure this stuff out. You know, I'm capable, and I'm generally curious about things, and I will figure it out. But what, to that point, what are the key mindsets and activities that are most important to keep overall career goals moving in the right direction from your perspective?
I think on mindset, owning an attitude of development. I think we've mentioned a couple of times is, you know, continuing your learning in this industry. You have to do that. It's ever evolving, and so you have to be as well. So by taking an attitude towards personal growth, you open yourself up to more possibilities. So keeping that mindset, I think, is key as far as activities in order to keep your career goals moving forward. I think you, since we're, you know, in an educational kind of setting, I think looking outside of the classroom is important in terms of building your network. I mean, join groups, whether that be on social media or in the community, in your area, any groups around the professional direction that you want to go and join those groups, make and establish those relationships with people. I mean, you can learn a lot from books and from courses and from reading material, of course, but you can also learn and gain different perspectives from other people that are you know, going in the same direction if they're not already in the same direction that you're looking to go as well.
Excellent.
So Um, my biggest technical mentor taught me something that I'm gonna reiterate here. He said, you need to make sure that you deepen your T. And essentially what he meant is when you get into an industry, right? Like it's already been brought up the sense of like, your new skills, they stack, your career stacks. You don't lose what you were doing before. It all will benefit and influence what you're doing now. And so in the, he was specifically talking in a technical sense, but I think it applies across the board. When you're very first starting out, there's this element of breadth. You need to kind of understand at a shallow level, kind of across the board. That understanding, kind of across the board is important. But once you have a general understanding, his advice to me was, Nick, make sure you focus on deepening your T. So if you kind of like, look at the letter T, right? You got this broad, shallow understanding that goes across, and then pick an area and try and go deeper there. And so I guess like, what's the key mindset, right? Obviously, I already talked about the importance of learning, but I think a little bit of focus is pretty important in that aspect as well. At first you don't know what you don't know. And so your job is to just kind of figure out what interests you. But when you find out what interests you, I think, focusing on that thing and trying to maybe dive a little bit deeper than the surface knowledge that anyone can really get is going to help set you apart. So I don't know if that makes sense. It may not apply to you. It was very applicable to me. And this technical mentor, I still look up to him quite a bit. And so it was impactful for me, so I'll pass it along.
I think kind of going off of that, Nick, is in going deeper. I know that value add is a buzzword that everybody hears, but if you can listen for where you can add value, because if all you're doing is just what's asked of you or what the client is coming to you asking for, they oftentimes will come like, this is what we need. And if all you're doing is that thing, then you're not really adding all that much value. Maybe you have the skill to do it and they don't have that, but you're adding a lot more value if you say, okay, maybe that's what you need, but what does that mean? And how can we, sure, maybe you want it to look different or act a little different. You want this one thing automated. What if the real business need here is this process needs to go away altogether, or this process needs to be completely switched around? So if you can listen for how you can add value and where you can add value, just by deepening your understanding of the issue at hand or the client's business, you can get a lot further, a lot faster, and develop long-term relationships, whether it's at a career or with a client.
That's super insightful. And I will say, Nick, I'm gonna steal that because it really, how that speaks to me. And we talk about this internally at WGU a lot, and how I'm going to move my career forward, how anybody moves their career forward, and that is, you can, everybody seems to have a good idea, but how are you going to drive that idea when it starts getting painful, or you reach a place where you're out of your comfort zone? How are you going to execute it? And so that really turns into focus and kind of staying the course, and kind of speaks to the point that you made, Nick. So thanks for doing that.
And that's what's going to differentiate you from everybody else. That's what's going to differentiate you from everybody else, right? Because everybody hits that wall, and most people stop, right? When it's, you get to that point where it's harder to get a little deeper. And so by pushing through that, having the focus and the drive to kind of push through that and get a layer deeper, that's where you're going to really differentiate yourself from the other people that you're going to be, interviewing against or competing against for a job.
100%. So it leads to the next question, and we've heard this term quite a few times during the call, but it's the soft skills discussion. And what, from your perspective, what are the soft skills that people, what are the keys to being successful in technology consulting? What are the soft skills that people need to bring to the table, or where do you see gaps most often?
Yeah, it's you just have to understand how fast technology is moving right now. That the it doesn't matter. It matters less how long somebody has been doing something now, because some of these tools we're using have existed less than a year. And so the soft skills, I'll repeat, the learning agility, being able to um, learn something new and put down something you may have known before, and then learn something new again. That ability just to relearn is a huge soft skill. The other one that's really important, we call it ownership, and it's a super loaded word when we say it, because we're a partnership with a lot of owners, and also it refers to the soft skill of everything that falls in my lap. I own. I take complete control over it. Organizations, the speed of everything moves today. There's just not an ability to manage people, and the micromanaging is just not in our DNA at all. We support our people, but we look for people who can own projects completely, and they just kind of have the Midas touch that when they take a project end to end, we know it's going to be awesome for the client. It's going to solve their problems, and we don't have to. They just have complete ownership.
I think other soft skills that are really desirable, not only for our tech candidates, but for any candidate. We've mentioned this as communication. This is definitely key. I think it's probably one of the most valued soft skills for professionals. Communication, being able to explain how something works, and not only that, but how something works, and explain how that solution can really help a client. As a consultant, I think that's a very valuable skill set to have. Also, I would say time management and critical thinking. Our consultants deal with a lot of projects, a lot of clients at once, and so that time management is going to be key. And you don't want to throw off everyone else's timetable because of your lack of time management. So that's a skill set that you know that's not really strong for you. Something that you can definitely work on in order to strengthen that skill set. I think that would be definitely beneficial, as well as critical thinking and being able to think on your feet in certain situations and to make informed decisions, no matter the situation you find yourself in. Being flexible in that regard will definitely take you a long way as well.
So I'll just I'll a little bit of an interview cheat sheet here. So when if you're interviewing for my team, I mentioned the first interview is entirely behavioral. We spent some time as a group identifying 5 key value drivers, pillars, core values, whatever you want to call it, 5 attributes that make a great consultant. And all of our interview questions are tailored around one of those 5 categories. And so we ask you questions from each category and give every interviewee a score on each of these 5 categories: organization and discipline, problem solving / decision making, business acumen, communication / collaboration, and then ownership, initiative, drive. So those are the 5, like literally those are the 5 things you're going to be judged against. They're all soft skills, so I thought it was relevant.
That's super insightful, and actually, I liked, and that plays into the comment that Nathan made, which is, and a lot of the stuff you guys are saying is really sticking with me, because I think it's relevant for whatever career you choose. But if it falls in my lap, it's my responsibility. I mean, how much would any supervisor love to hear that coming from the mouth of somebody they supervise? Like, hey, I've got it. It's if it comes onto my plate or across my lap, I have got control of this, and I will figure out a way to get it done. I think that's awesome. Does anybody else want to comment on the soft skills piece?
The only other one, which I guess goes into communication, is you guys have already heard it before, but listening for any amount of nuance, because so many folks, especially I think, frankly, in the tech industry, come in thinking they've seen it all before and they have their solution because they put a lot of time and effort into building a solution already. And if you come to every client with with the moment of genius you had 2 years ago, it just doesn't apply anymore. So I think that's one of the big pieces of feedback we get from our clients at Eide Bailly, that we're truly willing to listen and come up with something unique to them, because we were able to understand the nuance of their business, because no business is alike. So just listen.
Excellent. So next question, what are some suggestions on ways that people can prepare themselves for a career in technology consulting, aside from the obvious of taking college courses, which I'll talk about later? But so, what can they do? Can they get on an online group? Can they take smaller training courses, networking? What are some of the suggestions that people can do to prepare themselves for a career in technology consulting?
The internet is your friend. There's copious amounts of information on the internet for you to consume. I'm going to come back to the T, right? Step one, understand kind of what options are out there, right? Because you're in IT, it's kind of the running joke. Like, if you're in IT, everyone expects you to be able to troubleshoot the internet, fix their printer, and write code. That's just not the way it works, right? So kind of understanding, you may already have that, but what area of IT interests you? And in order to do that, you kind of got to understand what the options are that are out there. So kind of understand, and then when you find what interests you, go deep. There's tons of forums and user groups and resources galore out there for you to take advantage of once you kind of found what area is interesting to you.
You've touched on network building as well, but I really think that is also a key in terms of preparing yourself for a next move, but in this case specifically for technology consulting. And that can be hard when you're pivoting a career to grow your network, especially if you've been in a specific sector for 10, 15 years. You probably have a really established network in that area, but when you're going towards a completely different career path, that can be tough. But I think starting out with your current network. I mean, people know people, right? Starting out with your current network, have conversations with trusted people, and figure out who do they know. Maybe they have ideas in certain directions you can go in terms of speaking to people, having conversations, networking, utilizing social media, especially LinkedIn. I mean, there are a million recruiters on LinkedIn, and trust me, we want to talk to people. So reach out to recruiters who might be recruiting for positions that you're interested in, and look to have those conversations, and just to learn a little bit more about what you can expect and what would be expected out of you moving towards this position. So I think building your network and making and building relationships with people in that area is definitely key.
Yeah, I would definitely say the networking. The other way I would say this is I'd start thinking of yourself as a brand, meaning when people have certain problems, they think of brands to go solve that problem. And the way that things are working now is we kind of through LinkedIn, especially, you kind of build this personal brand of what you're good at. And if I was to look at you on LinkedIn, if I was to talk to you, if I was to look at your resume, really thinking, is this person's brand set up to solve this problem that I'm trying to hire for? The more that you can kind of build that, that ability to be seen as the go-to person for a certain problem, the better your career is going to go. And so you start building that brand from day one when you kind of realize the direction you want to head in, which includes, on LinkedIn, you're commenting, you're participating in discussions inside of this field that shows that you're in it to participate. You're trying to be something bigger than just yourself.
That's great. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I'd also just say in those user group, I think user groups are an incredible tool and opportunity because most of them you could kind of passively participate and just pick up a lot of information for free. And especially if you're in a university environment, those things are falling from the sky. Opportunities like that are everywhere in the university environment. But at those or in those groups, you've got to find a mentor that's where you want to be. I know it's not like a technical certification or anything to take, but unless you have somebody that's kind of walked the path or a similar path that you hope to walk, it's going to be really hard to find that focus, especially if you're completely making a career pivot and you kind of in uncharted territory. You've got to find those mentors, and so many people are willing to mentor and help you out if you just ask, take them out to coffee, or just get on a phone call with them for 5 minutes. They're going to provide a wealth of knowledge to you. Everybody wants to talk about themselves, so give them an opportunity too.
I love talking about myself. It's the best.
That's awesome. So are there any specific certifications or training that people can obtain on their own that would be helpful for a role at Eide Bailly, for example? What degree, and then what degree seems to be the most beneficial from what you've seen? Or is it just, hey, if they've got this certification, I think they're going to be a good fit here? Or do you look at degrees? Just give me an idea of what those specific trainings or certifications that would be helpful for someone to bring to Eide Bailly.
Yeah, I'll jump in. You know, it's you're really looking for somebody who understands concepts, and so if you've got the word, so I'm going to get really specific with analytics. So if you've got the word Kimball method of dimensional modeling, these are concepts that exist in analytics. I know you've got some training. The Udemy courses are great. You know, they say that you're being proactive. I've seen a lot of that. You know, in analytics, SQL, Python, things that signal to us that you know these technical things are all pluses.
Yeah, and if you're interested in kind of more process automation type stuff, there's a lot of softwares out there. Most of the large providers have certifications or trainings that you can take. So for example, Salesforce.com might have the most robust training environment I've ever seen. It's called Trailhead. It is extremely large, very, very thorough. You can learn anything you want about the Salesforce platform there. And then, you know, integration platform as a service, you know, most of the big providers there will have training courses. If you want to get into robotic process automation, those softwares will have courses as well. So again, when you kind of understand, right, you know, on analytics, right, Nathan talked about the stages there, right? Catherine's talked about ERP. I'm talking about process automation. That's the, you know, kind of understanding the lay of the land and what opportunities exist. When you find something that interests you, that's where you want to start to dig a little deeper. I would discourage you from trying to learn, you know, take courses on NetSuite and Salesforce and learn how to script in Python. You're not going to get anywhere, right? Figure out what interests you and then focus your training efforts or your certifications on the thing that interests you the most right now. And that could change, right? Like change for me. I've got certifications with like 3 different technology providers. Obviously it changed for Nathan and Catherine. So don't be afraid about committing. It's not a lifelong commitment, but you do need focus to get to the point where you can actually add value with the concept.
That's great. Thanks.
Yes, I don't have specific ideas, but because I think when you make that career pivot and you sold yourself as somebody who's going to figure things out for your employer, I think they should invest back in you and they should provide those certifications for you, because oftentimes they're expensive and they're time consuming, and you can show a lot of forethought by investing in them early. And if you're able to do that, do so. But especially with like the NetSuite certifications, I think that your employer should help you out with those things. But prior to that, I wish I had taken anything at all in scripting in any language whatsoever. So, and some more information systems classes than came with my accounting degree, just because that contextual understanding of the environment would have helped a lot to have. So those ones, if you can invest in them early.
I'm gonna second that. It doesn't really matter what you do. Frankly, I don't think it really matters what you do, period. Understanding how to think like a computer, remove the soft logic from your thought process, right? Because with the computer, it's a 0 or it's a 1. It's a yes or it's a no, right? We have so much soft logic that we unknowingly like layer onto every decision that we make. And so learning to strip that back and think like a computer will just open your eyes to what is possible, what's not possible, how much effort it's going to take. It'll be extremely insightful. And this is gospel from the book of Nick, so take it for what it's worth. VBA with Excel, so accessible,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
free, resources galore. I think it's a phenomenal place to start if you want to like learn the concepts of how how does development work. I think I mean, you can find 10 billion YouTube videos that'll walk you through the beginning VBA, steps. So personal opinion, obviously, that can totally be challenged, but yeah.
I'll say one other angle that's interesting on the certifications is know that we Eide Bailey, we're trying to be meaningful to NetSuite and Salesforce and Microsoft. And so one of the ways that we become meaningful to them is the certifications that they ask us as partners to get. And so being aware of what it takes to be a good partner with some of these major providers and walking in with those certifications, you're kind of giving Eide Bailey just another reason to look at you because you've checked a box off.
Thanks, Nathan. So what advice can you provide for new grads to start the networking process for a specific sector or industry? I mean, we already talked about this a little bit, but is there any specific advice for new grads? This might be people that have just gotten an IT degree, or maybe it's somebody has a business degree, but they want to get into IT, but they don't want to get that, extra degree. What advice would you give a new grad for starting that networking process?
I wish somebody would have sat me down right after I graduated and said, Nathan, the network you are about to build is going to follow you forever. And so number one, know that if you ever do make a pivot in your career, making sure that all of those people, you're still in this world, you're still going to be connected with them, they're still going to be following you, you're still going to be following them. The tightness of your networks as they grow. I don't know if when I started, I just fully realized that how important that network was going to be to me 20 years down the road. And so being a little bit long-term thinking in the relationships that you're building, you may be irritated with a manager today, but in 10 years, that might be the manager that helps you pivot into something new. And so those networks, being very long-term focused with them and understanding how important they are. And it's really cool just to see the ways that people's careers go in different branches and you still are connected.
Absolutely. It's amazing how many people are willing to help if you're willing to ask. I would say do whatever you can to find local user groups. And with LinkedIn as a resource, literally all you have to do is say, hey, I'm in this area. I want to join a user group, right? Throw the appropriate hashtags on there or whatever to catch the right, the right audience that you're looking for. But people will respond, people will answer, people will try and help. But if you can get a part of some sort of a group, I think that's really helpful too. Because I think Catherine mentioned it before, as a new employer or a recent grad, you got to be looking for mentors. Like that's one of the most important things. You should probably be looking really heavily at that as you're evaluating your first employer too. You're going to get significantly better long-term value out of going somewhere where you're going to have really good mentorship than you are a few extra dollars right out of college. Those good mentors will provide exponentially more value in the long run. And user groups are a good way to find mentors outside of, just your employment, your place of employment.
I would also say, I don't know if it's the same in IT majors and such, but in accounting, there's like this gamut of interviews that you do in your senior year. That's just interview on interview on interview. And I used that because I had no idea what I really wanted to do with my accounting degree as an opportunity to build my network. And I think that's a really good way. If you introduce yourself to these folks that are interviewing you, not always, I mean, obviously you need to treat them professionally and their potential employer, but treat them as folks that you can ask follow-up questions of. Don't just do the typical send the thank you note email. Ask them, hey, if I have questions about my career, you're somewhere I might want to be. Can I follow up and just shoot you an email with questions and for advice? And that has gotten me super far. The partner that hired me as an intern at Eide Bailly is still one of my closest mentors. And I still ping him all the time for random questions in my entirely different career. So use those interviews as an opportunity and go interview for everything. And I mean, don't waste people's time, but say yes to every opportunity you have to get in front of those professionals, because there's not very many opportunities to get one of those guys one-on-one in a room and ask them some questions too. So if you can take advantage of that opportunity early and often, then you kind of have built-in network there. You're there anyway, so you might as well take advantage of it and turn it into a positive experience for yourself.
Yeah, I would echo Catherine and Nick. Having a mentor is a big deal, because sometimes you might be in a job for a while and you're like, yeah, I think it's going okay, but maybe it's not. And a mentor can tell you, hey, you're wasting your time. You need to go here or there, because they bring a different perspective to things. And having that mentor can really, kind of give you the kick in the seat that you need. One thing I wanted to ask you, and this is actually, I've been waiting the whole hour to ask this, and this is exciting to me, but what are some of the career opportunities at Eide Bailly, and what does a career at Eide Bailly look like? What makes Eide Bailly a really cool place to work and grow your career? I'll throw it out to the whole group. Fire away.
Bobby, it's your time to shine, man.
I know, right? Well, well, we do have openings, don't we? But as I mentioned before, about our different service offerings, we do, and we are looking for consultants right now in a number of spaces, whether that's data analytics, NetSuite, Salesforce integrations. So anyone that's wanting to move into a career path in tech, but also that wants to be client facing, we probably have a position open for you. And if not, there definitely will be one open, as we're definitely growing as a practice. So go take a look at our career page and learn a little bit more about us there. But then also take a deeper dive into our tech practice as well, to get familiar with what exactly we're doing and the direction that we're going in terms of tech, and get familiar. And you may see something there that jumps out at you. And hope you're listening to Nick earlier about those 5 soft skills, just in case you meet him on the other side.
I would also just mention at Eide Bailly, if you are an accounting major, if there are any on this call, I think traditionally there's been that funnel of you get to go to audit or you get to go tax, and then you're climbing the ladder till you're a partner. And that's all you really get. Those are the options that are provided to you as you're graduating. But no, in general in the industry, and particularly at Eide Bailly, the opportunities have exploded to not be pigeonholed into either of those 2 tracks. Starting with those tracks is incredible. You're going to learn tenfold what you would learn if you just stayed in one company or one industry, didn't go into public accounting. I firmly believe you learn tenfold if you start in public accounting, but you have more directions that you can go. You're not stuck in one path. If you couldn't figure that out from Nick and I and Nate, there's a lot of flexibility at Eide Bailly, and they're more invested in their people than the path their people are taking.
Right, and we definitely practice that. We practice it as much as we preach it. We definitely want our employees to grow and our teams to grow as well, however you see fit. And so we have, reimbursements that you can take part in if you're wanting to get higher education, or if you're wanting to get some certification, because again, we want you to be able to grow. We have an exchange program that you can take part of. If you're wanting to move and pivot into a different direction in terms, and so you can take part in those rotations in those different specialties. So we do a lot in order to make sure that that our employees can grow professionally in the way that they see fit. And we have those conversations throughout the year, those career conversations throughout the year to make sure that, your management and you are both aligned in terms of the direction that you want to go with your career.
Would anybody else like to comment on why they think Eide Bailly is a great place to be?
I mean, I can keep going. It really is a great place for me. This may be a little bit of an extreme example, but I took almost a $20,000 pay cut to join with the group that was then acquired by Eide Bailly. Again, extreme example, but the mentors that I found here are incredible. Over the past few days, I got to sit in a room with a lot of the people that are running the practices in technology consulting. Nathan obviously was there, and I'm sure Nathan can attest. I mean, it was, for me, I was sitting in a room full of fantastic mentors that have strengths in areas that I have weaknesses, and that surrounding yourself with a good team like that, especially early in your career, that's invaluable.
Yeah, a lot of the why of Eide Bailly right now is that we're growing so fast and the opportunities are so many. We're looking for people who can come in and be future leaders here, who can really help us run the business better. And so, there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity when you're part of a growing company. And right now, Eide Bailly, there's some companies with the economy that are really struggling, and then there's some companies that are really benefiting from it. Eide Bailly is growing no matter how you measure it, and things have just been really good for us the last few years.
I think something important at any organization you go to work for is knowing their values and kind of digging in to find out if it's lip service or if they're real. And at Eide Bailly, I mean, I knew from day one, and I still know today that culture statement that they put on their website is not lip service. It's real, and it hasn't changed a whole lot over the years I've been here, because it is what matters and what drives our organization day to day. And that, gosh, like Nick said, I could go on and on. I have clearly drank the Kool-Aid of Eide Bailly. I think I could sell it too, but you got to find a place whose values are an integral part of how they do business and align with yours. And if you find that, you're going to be at a place you're going to be a long time, and you'll be happy there.
That's awesome. Thanks, Catherine. I'm going to use this last minute to talk about WGU and then to thank the panelists. But WGU, please visit wgu.edu or call 855-948-8493 to learn more about our competency-based education. It's super affordable. You can go as fast as you want. It's very rigorous. But if you get an IT degree from us, you're going to get lots of industry certifications built right into that degree. You're not going to pay extra for those. And with that, I want to thank Nick, Catherine, Bobby, Nathan, Kelly, Carrie, everybody that joined the webinar. We're going to have a recording of this. I'll pass on to you guys, but I just really want to thank you. It's been super insightful. I've actually learned a bunch of stuff, and we're going to pass this video on. So again, thank you so much from WGU and Eide Bailly. Thank you for joining us. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving and a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us,
Everyone.
John.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Yeah.